Greetings, everyone. Happy spooky season, and welcome to PopStream, the official streaming channel from your friends at Pop Culture Classroom and Denver Pop Culture Con, where your community comes together to talk about your media because this is your PopStream. I'm your host, Matt Slater. You can find me at Matty Slay on Twitter and Twitch. And today we've got episode 2 of the PopStream AV Club, the show where we talk film, TV, and video game goodness. And today's topic of the show is an especially nerdy one because we are Pop Culture Classroom. We have to be super nerdy. So now we're not just talking horror today. We are talking about horror adaptations. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But first, joining me again for episode 2 of the AV Club is Faith OJ Boobo.
Hi. Also, boo.
Boo. Happy Halloween. I love your hat over there, Faith.
Thank you. I'll kind of I'll move it over there. So
for any of our audio listeners, it is a giant, oversized Nightmare Before Christmas hat, a la what you might find at Hot Topic. And also joining me for the AV Club is Sydney Haven.
Hello.
How are you today?
Almost Halloween.
Almost. We're close. We might make it. And then today we have our second esteemed and expert guest for the AV Club. And I got to look at your credentials here because there's a lot of them. Screenwriter, TV host, reviewer, festival screener, and horror expert, Mikayla Daniels. Mikayla, did I get it all?
I think that's probably all I gave you. Probably more.
You're like, I got 5 others I can pull out of my back pocket.
Yeah, I literally just wrote up a thing about the things that I've done in film in the last 5 years, and it's like 3 pages long already. So yeah, it's been great. A film that actually I recently worked on called Night of the Witch. It's a short horror film. It's in film festivals right now. I was a first AD on it, so really proud of that being out. And I also started a horror podcast called Death in Alaska. So you can find that on sort of any podcast platform. And I just
many
sort
of
of
the same 5 platforms you can find this show.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. And basically I kind of go over a haunted or creepy place in Alaska, give a little bit of the history, and then tell a ghost story. And I think the 3rd episode's going out tomorrow. So. Oh,
rad. That sounds awesome. What's been like the most surprising thing that you've learned in doing research about these ghost stories?
That I worked at 2 haunted hotels. Like I only worked at like 4 places in Alaska and 2 of them were haunted. So. Oh
my gosh. And you never encountered anything while you were there? You learned about it after the fact?
Well, you'd have to listen to the podcast to find out. So.
You are a professional. I love that. So Mikayla, what's kind of your history with horror? What's your background?
And I dug something out deep for you guys. So when I was a little kid in 4th grade, the first horror film I saw was Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, right? And I was a little kid. And I was so inspired by it that I wrote a book.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
So I wrote that when I was in 4th grade, and MT was a mutant tomato, and he was my main character in my storybook. And I believe I even wrote a follow-up. I just haven't located it yet. So huge horror fan since like I could walk, talk, write.
Writing fanfic before you probably knew what fanfic was.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's awesome. What are some of your horror favorites?
Night of the Living Dead.
Okay.
Huge Romero fan.
Right.
You know, I think I wrote no less than 3 dissertations on that film in my undergrad. So
just a bit of a fan, just a little.
Bit of a fan, and a huge fan of the sort of classic slasher movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween. Those kind of I really grew up with, you know, as a kid and as a teen. So those are really close to my heart.
Nice. Well, we can't wait to dive into the horror with you in a moment. But first, if any viewers or listeners out there are new to our channel, here is how PopStream works. We're live every Thursday at 4 p.m. Mountain Time on PopStream's YouTube and Twitch channels, as well as on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube for the Pop Culture Classroom and Denver Pop Culture Con pages. And if you're watching live, you get to be a part of the show by chatting with us and Mikayla on any of those platforms. So give us your horror questions for the experts, give us your hot takes, your favorite horror media, or just chime into our conversation and get your comments read live on the air. So don't be afraid to say hi. I'm watching the chat window over here. But if you can't watch us live, we've still got you covered. You can catch this show and all of the other amazing PopStream content on demand on youtube.com/PopStream, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. So just search for PopStream. And even if you are watching or listening on demand, you can still be a part of the show by emailing us at popstream@popcultureclassroom.org. And that's where you can give us your questions, your recommendations for future shows, or just give us your take on something that we're talking about here on the show. But this is important. No matter where you're watching or listening, and no matter whether it's live or on demand, if you love us, and we love you because you are watching, give us a like, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, give us a 5-star review. And if you really like us, you'll do all of that at youtube.com/PopStream and on as many of the podcast services as you can. We appreciate all views, no matter where you are, but that is where they make the biggest difference for us. So before we get into our horror adaptations today, I want to check in with you guys and just know, what is one thing that you are currently playing or watching, film or TV, that you kind of want to tell the people about? And we're going to start with Sydney. I hear you're playing a game called Phasmophobia.
I have been playing Phasmophobia. Yes.
Okay. Tell us about
I'm
it.
obsessed.
What is Phasmophobia? We're going to play some of it tomorrow. You get to see us be very, very scared tomorrow. But what is Phasmophobia for anyone who's never heard of it?
So it's pretty new, actually. I think it's still in early release, actually, which is really impressive because it's such a fantastic game already. I'm really excited about its progression. But it's basically a co-op ghost hunting game. If you've ever seen the show like Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters or any of those, it's more like realistic like that. You just go into these different locations. You have all of your equipment, your ghost hunting equipment, and you go in as a team and you try to find evidence to determine what kind of ghost it is, because then later, like off screen, there's another team that's going to come in to remove the ghost. Okay. So it's your job to figure out what the ghost is. It's all first person, right? So it's very spooky. Yes, it's all first person. There's a really cool like in-game chat feature that's really impressive. In my opinion, it's like proximity. So if you're in the same room as your team, you can just talk, you can do local chat. But if you're across the house or across the building, you can chat with each other through like your walkie-talkies. There's like a global chat, so you can still stay in contact with your team, even if you're not in the same room. Is it like jump scares? Cool. Is it just like a creepy vibe? Like what kind of horror is it? Because I am a big scaredy cat. And I'm terrified of tomorrow. I don't want to give too much away before we play it, because I think the experience is a big part of it. But there are some jump scares, but they're not like in your face kind of jump scares. It's more just like if you've ever been in a dark, abandoned building by yourself when there's no other people in there. Sounds great. You kind of know like the vibe of the game. Sounds awesome. I don't do first person horror. Resident Evil 7's the only one I've really done because I can't do it. So I'm really, if you want to see me just like try everything I can not to curse really loudly tomorrow, check us out. The whole cast, me, Faith, and Sydney will be playing Phasmophobia tomorrow for PopStream, which I'll tell you all about a little bit later. Faith, what are you? Let's see. You are doing 31 Days of Halloween?
Yeah, I'm essentially watching a horror movie every day this October. That's essentially the goal. I've been a little behind.
Is it prescribed as to what you watch, or do you get to choose what you watch?
Yeah, there's essentially like a couple words or a term that's used, and that's how you pick. So one of them was like Drac Attack. So it was all like vampire, Dracula related things. So I watched Fright Night because that was like a vampire. So there are things like that. So I've been challenging myself to do a couple different things. So I'm doing that, but I'm also doing a lot of things that I haven't seen. So most of the stuff is things I haven't seen. So I saw like the most recent Fright Night, but I hadn't seen the original one. So there are a couple of those that I honestly don't even want to share some of the original things that I decided to watch this time, because it shows like yeah, I watch a lot more of the current stuff, and so now I've been watching some of the older stuff and realizing that I prefer that a little. I think a little bit more than some of the more recent material. So,
Oh, okay. That's interesting because Jay on Facebook says that he liked Halloween better than Friday the 13th. Have you gotten to
yeah.
watch either of those as part of your 31 days?
So I watched Halloween, the original one. I had seen bits and pieces, but I never saw it the full way through. So
Jamie
I
Lee
decided
Curtis,
to do
right?
that. I really enjoyed that one, and I watched Nightmare on Elm Street 2 because of just some of the content and just some of the discussions around it. So I was really curious to see it, and I enjoyed that one. I think that Halloween for sure gives the scares, and I think has a really interesting build that I think still works. So I really like that one. I can see why some people might not like the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff because it is there is a lot more comedy and goofy, sort of almost a satirizing for some of that stuff. So I think Halloween certainly gives the scares for sure.
I haven't seen the originals of either. I've seen a couple. I saw one of the Halloween remakes. Usually the slasher flicks aren't my jam, but now I know which one to go back to. So thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. And then Mikayla, you're watching The Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, totally something I would never normally watch, right? It like clicked on, you know how Netflix auto plays, right?
And now there's a shuffle button. Have you guys seen this?
No.
The biggest emotional reaction I had that day was seeing the shuffle button on Netflix. Like you can just turn on Netflix and be like, I don't want to pick, just pick something for me. So the Netflix algorithm picked The Queen's Gambit for you.
Essentially, and so it started playing, and I don't like chess, and I generally watch horror movies, but I'm sucked in. The writing is really good, and the lead character, it's a female. She's a chess prodigy as a young kid, but she also deals with a lot of she's an orphan and stuff like that. So it's very compelling character drama, really.
Huh. Okay, and so it's about chess. And it's a horror.
No.
Okay. So what? Give me like the 2-sentence synopsis.
Female child chess prodigy tries not to destroy her life on her way up.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. And that's on Netflix. So if you need something new, we got The Queen's Gambit. And then I just finished up playing Hades on my Nintendo Switch. Hades is any of y'all heard of that or played it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I've seen
but I haven't played it.
Okay. It's from Supergiant Games, and Supergiant is an indie studio. They did Bastion previously. They did Transistor and Pyre, all fantastic, but they have a very unique visual and audio style. And so Hades is a roguelite. So you're making lots of repeated runs, getting a little bit stronger every time, different loadouts every time. And you are the son of Hades trying to escape the underworld. And so throughout the whole thing, it's all about Greek mythology, and it tells a really cool story, which is not new for a roguelike game, but a lot of roguelites don't do a lot of story just because the whole mission is to start a run, get as far as you can, you die, you start over, you get it. And so they've actually intertwined the story with that here. And so there's lots of context sensitive things. You meet the whole pantheon of Greek gods. But after 40 escape attempts, I finally made it out. And the game doesn't stop there. You have to keep going and keep doing it. So I'm like, I've already put 25 hours in this game. Do I keep going because I'm having a really good time? Or do I get to the large pile of all the other games that are sitting around that I need to get to because the Doom Eternal DLC is out and I still haven't gotten to it. So that is what we are all playing and watching right now. What are you guys playing and watching right now? You can drop that in the chat and let us know. I might get your comment read here on the air. Or, of course, like I said, you can email us at popstream@popcultureclassroom.org and let us know what you're enjoying. But today's topic of the show is horror adaptations, which is kind of an interesting one. And I when we first talked about this, I was like, I don't know how much content. And then the more I thought, I was like, oh, there's a ton of content we can talk about just with horror adaptations. And there's lots of different, we're going to start with some of the more obvious adaptations. And I'm going to kind of kick off this conversation with the one that I always think of first with this, and that's It. Stephen King's It. Have you guys read it or seen it?
Both.
No,
No.
both. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've only seen it, so I've only seen the two most recent ones.
The two most recent ones. Now, Sydney, as I asked this, I remembered a fun fact for everybody out there listening as we were kind of prepping for this conversation. Sydney, you do not watch horror, correct?
Correct.
But you play a lot of horror, correct?
Yes.
We're going to talk video games here a little bit. And so I want to remember to get back to that, but you have not seen it. Mikayla, you said you've read the book. What are your thoughts on the book?
The book is a masterpiece. I mean, it's really creepy. I read it before the original It miniseries had come out.
The 1990?
Yeah, which I love the miniseries too, because Tim Curry, it's Tim Curry. Let's face it.
I disagree. I agree with you on that. I love the book. The book is actually one of my top 5 favorite books of all time. I listened to the audio book, which is 50 hours long. It's insane, but it's so well told. And the way that they link the story between the kids and the adults really makes it something special. But before the new remake came out, my husband and I did watch the 1999 or the 1990 and it was terrible. It was so bad.
So you also have to remember context, right? Of
Sure.
when
TV
it came
movie.
out. And,
Yeah.
and, it was a big freaking deal when it came out because, you didn't do that. You didn't have, it was on I think like ABC, it was on a major network, right? And it was over 2 weekends, this mini series. So even back then, horror was not being put on television like that. So the reason why I like it so much is because it was really kind of fresh and new for that time. And it really kind of opened up television to the horror genre in a way that we really hadn't been doing in television before.
That's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. But there are some moments there. You get Seth Green as a little child. That's always fun. But yeah, it was tough to watch.
I mean, especially with technology today, and then even comparing it to the new It, right? I mean, you're talking completely difference in special effects and just what we can do with the camera. So while watching it now, the original, yes, it's very cheesy and some of the, practical effects and stuff, you're just kind of like, oh, that's dumb. But it was a pretty big deal when it came out. So we always have to remember that when we're watching older things.
Right. So I still don't have very high opinions of the remake either. Unfortunately, the first one was a little bit closer, but chapter 2, it really, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I guess that might be me a little bit. I know kind of what happens in the books. I've read little synopses or different things.
Sure.
I've not read it. It is a thick one. And so I haven't sat down and decided that I'm going to take on that sort of task.
It's a beast, but it's worth it.
And so I recognize that that's probably something in order to add to my reading and my knowledge. But I really enjoyed the first one for sure, and liked the second film as well. I don't know if it was as good as the first one. I think the first one was really solid. But I think I liked some of the character progression. And I think that's kind of what Stephen King excels at, is a lot of this character progression and recognizing the cycles that people get into. And breaking the cycle is essentially also how the horror stops. So I find those things interesting. I find, how Pennywise returns in the second one, very fascinating. I don't know if we want to get into spoilers. I know we try not to, so I won't get too much into that. But
it's been out a while.
That's an important part of that too, of that something so terrible has to happen for something to be released. And so I think there are these really interesting things that are there. I think the actors were really solid. I think there could have been maybe another check through, the writing and things like that, and that might have just made that just kind of right over the top. So, but it's a good horror film for the period of time that it's been set up, and it's a fun kind of watch.
Yeah. A.T. McLaughlin on Twitch says the remakes nailed the tone of the book, but fell flat in other areas. And I kind of agree with that. Some of the tone is definitely better. And the end of chapter 2 of the remakes is 10 times better than the end of the 1990 miniseries, but it's still so far from the book. And I get it's necessary. That's a hard book to adapt. So I'm gonna hold my breath for like the HBO 10 episode series. I think that'll be the closest we can get.
Right.
What other adaptations do you guys enjoy of like kind of straight one-to-one adaptations from one media to another?
The Mist. I mean, if we're talking Stephen King, right?
I mean, there's a lot of Stephen King.
Right. The Mist, though, man, I gotta tell you, seeing that on screen, that ending gut punched me more than any other film ever has.
I haven't seen that one. No, I'm thinking of the one where the trees are alive. That's M. Night Shyamalan. That's completely different. Yeah, I'm getting it mixed up. Not quite related. I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead and the many, many different adaptations that they do of that universe, because they don't try super hard to stay close. And specifically, the show was good for a while. I left off around season 7, where I think a lot of people did. But specifically, have you guys played the Walking Dead video games from Telltale Games?
I have.
You have. What do you think?
I like them. I'm not super into video games, so only reason I tried them is because I'm a huge Walking Dead fan. Mm-hmm. So I still like the series, sort of better than the games as far as like adapting from the comics.
Mm-hmm. Did you read the comics?
Yeah, so I was a huge fan of the graphic novels, so I knew all about it when it originally came out, right, in 2010. And back then it was a 6-part miniseries from AMC.
Yeah,
and the moment that 6-part landed, I turned to my boyfriend, I said, AMC is stupid if they don't turn this into a full-fledged series. And sure enough,
and you got 2. You got 2 series out of it. Like what's the third one?
The new one, Walking Dead, or what is it? Our World. It just premiered a couple weekends ago. It's like a younger, younger teen sort of cast.
Oh, yeah, cool. It's like teens going out into the world to try and like fix it, or see if there's other people out around, or other things out in the Walking Dead universe.
And that's the cool thing with those adaptations is, again, they don't try to just retell. Even, the comic book to the TV series is the closest, but still veers off in lots of different ways. But when you get to the expanded universe, when you get to Fear the Walking Dead, when you get to the Telltale video games, even a couple of the other video games, they just take that world and expand it a lot. I'm a big fan of the Telltale games. And I actually, when all of their games, not just The Walking Dead, but when people tell me that, they may not be super into video games or it's something new to them, this is something I always recommend, because you don't have to have a controller. You can play it on a tablet. You can play it on a phone, and it's not walking around in third person. It's not a lot of mechanics. A lot of it's just making choices, which is one of my favorite parts. It kind of popularized the Telltale mechanic of so-and-so will remember this. So you would tell them, respond to the conversation one way, or you would take an item and so-and-so will remember this. They won't forget this. And it would always make you feel like, oh God, what did I do? How is that going to reflect? But there's been 4 seasons of the video game, and I've really enjoyed all of it. I hope we get some more. Yeah. I saw on here that Blade was one of those adaptations that we think of here. And I have not read Blade. I have not seen Blade. But in our conversation previously, we mentioned that it might be kind of the beginnings of not the official Marvel Cinematic Universe. But Mikayla, what do you think about that?
Right. So just for a brief sort of thing about that, everyone I'm sure knows that season 4, they have announced that in the Marvel Universe, there will be a new Blade movie, right? Looking about 2022. I mean, not super early, but it is going to be in phase 4 of Marvel. Okay. But the original Blade, which came out in 98, I think, late 90s, with Wesley Snipes, I would like to point out that I think that film actually kind of led the way for what we're seeing in sort of the Marvel universe now, right? They don't actually consider that original Blade film as, part of this sort of Marvel comics universe, but it was such a big thing when it came out, right? I mean, it was a huge sort of comic book, but like it's a very, very dark subject matter, and to adapt it into this film was, you know, really wasn't a big, you know, people weren't doing that. Like this was, you know, several decades ago. So it wasn't like it is now where you have a superhero comic like movie every summer, 3 or 4, right? And so when it came out, it was huge. And I think it really set the tone and maybe kind of inspired things like Punisher and Daredevil on Netflix, right? Because those had a very similar dark tone to it. So I like to say that that original Blade movie kind of paved the way for really what we're seeing with these comic book adaptations into movies now.
Because what comic book movies were we seeing back then? We were seeing like Batman and Robin and Batman, like the Joel Schumacher Batmans. I'm trying to think of any other big name comic adaptations were coming out at that time.
That was it.
Yeah, definitely a change in tone.
Yeah.
I think it even like brought Blade into a lot of like the Marvel cartoons. Like I remember that being like a big deal of him being like showing up after that movie too. So and then there were a lot more like vampire sorts of events in cartoons and things. So I think that also inspired a lot of like horror lovers as well, because you had like Blade all of a sudden show up, and like in some of these other folks that were part of his like comic book that were really interesting. So I think that's even more fun when you recognize like the other stuff that he's kind of impacted in relation to horror and
comics. Speaking of horror cartoons, we watched Beetlejuice the other day. Did any of you guys watch the Beetlejuice animated cartoon TV show?
I saw parts of it. I don't remember much of it, but I know I watched parts of it.
It just blows my mind that exists. Like, as I was watching Beetlejuice, it was like, how did this movie get made? This movie could never be made in a modern day, like not based on anything. And then they took this twisted movie where the main character is essentially just like a hillbilly pervert and turned it into a children's cartoon show that aired, I forget how many seasons it aired, but I can't think of any other like horror or scary properties that kind of got that children's adaptation.
I can't think of any.
We get Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark, but I mean, those are their own thing.
Yeah, and those were always geared towards younger.
Right. Exactly.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, honestly.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think like the adaptations, and it just blew my mind. I was like, who was in that room that was having that conversation that was like, you know what we need, Tim Burton? Let's make this a kid's show. Perfect. Makes sense. But hey, that's a gem to go back to. And then for adaptations, we also have, you know, the maybe not comic to movie or, you know, one medium to another, but we also have just the remakes of things. So Mikayla, you mentioned you were a big George A. Romero fan. And we have like the original Dawn of the Dead versus the 2004 remake. And I'll be the first to admit, so I've never seen the original, but I love the 2004 remake. So I need the pitch for why I should go back to the original.
I kind of like the remake better.
Oh, really?
With you. I still love. I know. Sorry. I still love the original. I still tell people to watch it. I think, you know, George Romero was a master of horror, and I think it's important to kind of really, you know, go through the Dead sort of series, all the original film series. I thought I was going to hate the remake because I generally don't like remakes, and I loved it. Ving Rhames was brilliant. I love him on screen. There was a lot of definitely heightened fear. You know, it felt scarier. It was really, you know, kind of brought my adrenaline up.
And with that remake, I always think of the classic, I think his name is Richard Cheese, that remade Get Up, Come On, Get Down with the Sickness. And it's just the best version of that song. And there's some really great moments in that, just being in the when they're on top of the mall and they're shooting all the zombies, like from up top, and then you get to the end and it's devastating. I don't know. I have a lot of nostalgia for that movie. I was probably 15 when I first watched it.
I'm still so shocked. I really don't like the 2004 remake.
18 McLaughlin on Twitch says Faith is shook.
I am. I was so disappointed in the 2004 remake. I know that and it got a lot of like love. And I was like, I don't understand it. Like, you know, I
What do you
get
not like about it?
parts for sure, but I just feel like it missed the original, like the discussion and some of the really basic thematic elements of the original. And so
Expound.
So, like, the original idea for Dawn of the Dead is that it's consumerism that is like the big issue. It's consumerism and how, and so them being trapped in a mall, and the idea is like all of these undead sort of folks are all around, and they're essentially just doing what they did in life as they did in death. And so, like, that's the big
We
thing.
are the Walking Dead.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. And so, so yes, it's kind of hokey in how certain people are dressed. Like a lot of the face makeup is like blue, and you can tell that it's just people walking, or like you can tell it, like, you know, for sure. It's not, you know, it's not how they dress up zombies now, for sure.
But that was like the beginning of zombie cinema, right?
Yeah, this is like some of the first stuff. So I feel like the thematic elements of the original are so important and so interesting, and I feel like it's completely ignored in the 2004, and it's instead is blamed on everybody not believing in God enough, and so that's why everyone is punished, and that's really hard. I just think it's a really hard thing to swallow. And so the mall theme makes no sense. Like, none of it makes sense. If they were stuck in a church, oh, absolutely, go for it. Like, go for all of these themes if that's the discussion that you want to have. I just feel like it's antithetical to what they were talking about, and so some of the scares are cool. I like a lot of the actors there. I just feel like some of the themes are just like so antithetical to what they were actually like talking about, that I really prefer the original because it's tonally, it just tonally works better. So, and I was just really disappointed with the 2004. And maybe that's because I didn't watch it in 2004. Like, I watched it maybe 5 or 6 years after, and it just still is like, I thought about going back to watch it again before we had our time here, and I just couldn't even do it. I was
couldn't bring yourself to do it.
No, I don't even like it. I can't do it.
Oh man. The dead baby scene also is what I think of every time I think of that movie. It's terrible. Oh, well, we are about to get into Dawn of the Dead. Also gives us some really cool adaptations in video games, and we're going to get into that in just a sec. But first, we have a word from our sponsors. Get ready for a terrifying good time. Coming this Friday, it's PopStream live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter with special Halloween guests, horror and fiction author Stephen Graham Jones. Scout Comics on creating horror comics. Masks and makeup with cosplayer and PopStream Comics cast member Tara Necessary. The PopStream AV Club cast gets scared out of our wits playing Phasmophobia. The TV guidance counselor Ken Reed talks Halloween week in television in 1990. Join the PopStream fun this Friday, October 30th, and share your favorite costumes using hashtag PopStream. Well, friends, I have no idea if you could hear that audio or not. If you heard an amazing voiceover actor, then you, which definitely was not me by any means. I don't know how I convinced these people to let me do these things. But if you didn't hear any of that, we do have PopScream happening tomorrow. And that is our day-long celebration of the spooky season and a taste of the con experience that we all miss so much. You saw a flashby of all of those amazing panels and artists that we're going to have on tomorrow. We've got Scout Comics. We've got author Stephen Graham Jones. We have cast member from the PopStream Comics giving, oh, you could hear me. So then I'm going to stop here because you heard it. I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm not going to do this work twice. I don't get paid enough for that. All right, here's our next ad. We're going to talk about Pop Culture Classroom's boot camps. So Pop Culture Classroom, the educational nonprofit behind Denver Pop Culture Con, has opened registration for a new series of virtual boot camps where you can pick up a new hobby or take the first steps to becoming a professional in the arts. If you're looking to become a comic book creator or a YouTube and streaming content creator, this is your opportunity to learn from professionals and build community. And there is still time to sign up. Classes meet virtually once per week for 5 weeks. And in addition to getting instruction from professionals, ooh, I'm definitely a professional. You'll also get curated resources and activities to help reinforce skills between classes. And best of all, you'll get to build community and make new friends with learners just like you. Classes are for age 16 and up, and there are a limited number of scholarships available. And because they're virtual, it doesn't matter where you live, the magic of the internet will let you participate. And finally, if you're a PopStream listener, you are awesome. So you get 15% off just for enjoying this awesome content. All you have to do is use the code PopStream when you check out again to receive 15% off your bootcamp. And you can learn more at popcultureclassroom.org/camps. All right. So speaking of Dawn of the Dead, Dead Rising. Anybody remember Dead Rising on the Xbox 360? It put out a couple of different games, and it is Dawn of the Dead, the video game. So anybody played this?
Nope.
This game, in addition to being awesome, its claim to fame was it was one of the first games in HD. And so if you had a standard definition TV, you couldn't read the text because it was made for an HD TV. And so all of us that hadn't upgraded yet were like squinting at our TVs. I remember having like a 40-inch screen in college and still not being able to read the text because it was not HD. But Dead Rising, you are Frank, and he's a photographer, and you go into this mall, and it's run over with zombies, and you can use almost anything in the mall as a weapon and can dress up Frank, your character. And so like you could go put on the Lego hats and run around with like fake lightsabers and beat people up. You could just grab a cash register and beat up a bunch of zombies. But the best part was when you went down into the parking garage and you got in the car and just like ran over as many zombies as you could. But Dead Rising is an example of where we get some ideas from another media that kind of go into something else. So taking the ideas that come from film that have been so popular and put them into a video game. There's a couple others that I know, Sydney, now we're getting into your territory. So you like horror games. Why do you like horror games, but not horror movies?
I don't have like a really satisfying answer for that. I think
I need you to try. I gotta understand this.
I think maybe it has something to do with like the level of control that I have in the situation in a video game, even though you don't really have a lot of control because you kind of have to go with like what's happening in the game. It feels a little bit more like it's under my control than if I'm just watching. Cause like I'll see characters in a movie do something that I'm like, I would never do that. That's so like, just it's unbelievable to me, or it's stupid or whatever, you know, it's like the classic horror movie.
You get a little bit of agency.
Stereotype, like the characters being stupid, but so I think maybe that has something to do with it. Honestly, I don't know otherwise. I don't like being scared. I'm a baby.
And you're the one that recommended we play Phasmophobia. I was like, oh, let's play Little Nightmares. It'll be great. And you're like, no, first person horror. And we owed you one for
because it's co-op.
We owed you one for putting you through the boys. And so this is the payback, I feel like. And if you missed that discussion, that happened on last month's episode of the AV Club, where you can see us talk all about the boys. But one of my favorites that kind of takes all these film tropes and dumps them into one game, Until Dawn. And I believe a couple of y'all have played that before, yeah? What do you think about Until Dawn? Or for the people who don't know, or if they need to know what they should go play, if they wanted to pick out a horror video game, why should they play Until Dawn?
Until Dawn is basically an interactive horror movie. I mean, that's what it is. Like, it's not even necessarily an adaptation of anything. It's just like you're watching and playing a horor movie. It's like a choose your own adventure horror movie.
Kind of like the Telltale
and it's got a lot of and it's got a lot of recognizable actors in it. Hayden Panettiere,
Rami Malek
is one of the main characters. He's in it. I'm totally blanking on how I recognized people in it. Now I'm totally blanking.
Yeah, you pull it up
on
and
who
you're like,
else
oh, that's
they
that
were,
person
but they're very
from-
recognizable. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah. So
I think of it like B movie, the video game, like that really bad horror movie.
yeah,
Not,
you
not
basically
B movie,
can
like Liz, the producer's
yeah, and you
laughing at
can
me.
like
I'm not talking like Ray Romano. Isn't he who's in B movie? I'm talking like not an A movie, it's a B movie. Liz.
yeah, and you can like you're kind of in control of the character's fate, basically, and that's where like the choose your own adventure stuff comes in. Like you can choose the left path or the right path, and if you choose the left path, then the person you're trying to save could die because you didn't get there in time because you picked the wrong, so it's like it's very
And by the
interactive.
end of
It's
the
very
game,
cool.
there's like 6 characters or 8 characters, and by the end of the game, they can all live or die depending on your choices.
All
So
of
yeah,
them.
18 McLaughlin says nobody wants a B movie game, and I'm pretty sure it does exist somewhere. I might have to do a quick Google.
It does exist, unfortunately.
But yeah, every character can either live or die. So you play as different characters throughout. So it's broken up into chapters, and each chapter you play as a different character. There's some moments where you literally have to be still. So it's on the PlayStation PS4, and the controller is motion sensitive. And so there are certain parts where you literally have to hold the controller as still as possible to not get seen by the monsters. But as far as adaptations go, they take all the tropes, right? So not at one point it's a slasher flick. And then without getting into too many spoilers, it changes from being a slasher flick to a monster flick. You get some good suspense and some good mystery in there. You get the good twists. And you even get like the moment where they go off to the cabin by themselves and they want to go, the boyfriend and girlfriend want to go have their moment in the cabin. And you're sitting there like, why? Why are you doing this? But yeah, if you haven't played it Until Dawn, definitely go. Do you have a favorite moment from that game?
I'm trying to even think now. It's all great. I definitely, just like in generalized terms, I appreciated it more when it was a slasher flick than it was a monster movie. I liked the monster movie part of the game, but not as much. It wasn't as suspenseful.
Well, at that point, a little bit of like
I don't even know.
the magic's kind of been revealed, or not the magic, but like the twist has been revealed.
Yeah. I think that my favorite part of that game, I don't know if I want to do too many spoilers for it or anything. It's a pretty like old game, years. But yeah. So you're playing as one character and you have to make a choice. There's 2 characters that are about to be murdered in front of you, and you have to choose which one. And your choice obviously affects things that happen later on in the game. But it turns out you don't actually have a choice at all, because one of them is going to be murdered regardless of what you choose. It's the same one. But you don't know that.
But that choice still does have ramifications later on.
But then if you choose wrong, it does affect. And it's like you choose between your best friend and the girl you have a crush on. And so it seems like, obviously you'd pick your best friend, but your choice has ramifications later on. So it's
right. And you're trying to decide as like,
I think that one's probably my favorite
towards
moment.
One of their faces, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And there's a time
very
limit.
Stressful.
Yeah, it's like a quick time event, basically. You have to decide.
But that game you can play
one
a few times through, because every time you play through, if you make different choices, you see different parts of the game, which is super cool.
I have a question too.
No questions. Yes.
No questions. Okay. Well, it sounds like it's a lot like Cabin in the Woods. Does that feel like a similar sort of vibe? Because I haven't played this game. So so you're saying this and all I'm hearing is like, Cabin in the Woods. And so I was very curious to see if that's a similar sort of thing together.
It's similar in the way that it subverts your expectations.
Okay.
Or it's similar in that it does subvert your expectations, but maybe not in the most similar ways. Okay. That's such a good movie.
It is really good.
Chris Hemsworth in that one. I love, my favorite part is, I think I could say this, is when the stoner character comes out and he has his smoking apparatus as soon as he gets out of the car that collapses down into the coffee cup. It's excellent. I like how Cabin in the Woods definitely takes all the horror tropes and subverts it. I love the gifs that you see of them. Like now you get the 2020 gifs of the dude standing in front of the whiteboard, like, all right, who had Murder Hornets for 2020 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well,
what other like subversive, because that's like a whole genre unto itself, is that subversive horror. What else, what other subversive horror do you guys enjoy?
I really enjoyed Lovecraft Country. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but I really enjoyed this recently. So I don't know how much more I can say about how wonderful it is. It's a really interesting.
Have you read the book?
I did not read the book. I'm actually very curious to do that because the series was so fascinating, and so I'm a little hesitant because I am afraid it will ruin some of my expectations and some of the things that I really love about the series. So,
so for anyone who hasn't seen it, why should we watch that, and what is it that you like about it?
There's so many things. The acting is amazing. I feel like there are lots of these really interesting twists and turns that you don't expect.
Well, so first of all, what is Lovecraft Country?
Oh, okay.
I know who Lovecraft is, but the posters from this show do not match quite what I know of Lovecraft.
Yeah. So for I think a lot of us know who H.P. Lovecraft is. And so a lot of his genre stuff is the idea that the out group is kind of terrifying and scary and can change all of the in group. And so that's kind of been his discussions, and that's also kind of his politics. And so the subversive thing about Lovecraft Country is it's actively fighting H.P. Lovecraft's politics and a lot of his beliefs. And so the thematic element, or the way that I like to talk about it, is that it's not that monsters can be killed. Monsters can be stopped. You can find weaknesses. You can find all those things. So they are scary, but they can be stopped. The real horror is the things that we do to ourselves in society and the things that we do to one another. And that is what makes Lovecraft Country so interesting, is the terrifying things that society that the other people do to one another. And so I think that's what's so interesting about it. And so there are discussions essentially using H.P. Lovecraft's work to essentially talk about those things. And I think that's amazing for us to be able to even have that right now.
It's one of my favorite things that I've seen lately. It has a few issues, a few storytelling issues and motivation issues as it goes through, but like the good parts about that series so outweigh any of those issues. The music choices are brilliant. I can't say enough good things about Lovecraft Country.
There are certainly some issues. I think there are discussions about LGBT issues that kind of fall flat or are done in ways that you kind of cringe or say, hey, this could be done better for sure. But I think a lot of the things are really strong, and the actors do so well with one another and I think that's why it's so successful, and that's why it works so well, is because the actors make you love the characters and make you kind of root for everybody, and then go, why am I rooting for everybody? Because some of these people are terrible. And then you recognize that it's also because of society and how society's shaped and formed them. And that's why you can root for them, but also see them as terrible people. So
the scene with the red bottom shoes, that gave me some visceral feelings. If anybody out there knows what we're talking about. Also, Liz, you're getting a lot of love in the chat right now. Alex G on YouTube and AT McLaughlin on Twitter are saying shout out to Liz. She killing it. So thank you to Liz on our Twitch. Thank you. Oh, wow. Thank you to Liz on the back end. She's doing some awesome work back there. Somebody had brought up Final Girls, which I have not seen. So I need someone to tell me why I need to watch Final Girls. Nobody?
I don't even know what that is. I'm going to be honest with you.
I think it's going to be me. It's wonderful. I will say the beginning of how I would describe it to somebody. A child sees a film that their parent is a star in a slasher. And so they go to see a movie with their parent in it, and things happen. That is how I describe it, because if I say anything else, it gives away what goes on. It is
so
wonderful.
It's still within that subversive kind of category. Okay.
I would say that it's kind of spooky, but not to the same degree. Like Sydney, this is something you could absolutely watch and not be like, this is terrible, I'm scared. Like this one you could do.
So it's good for babies.
This one you can do for sure. And it's fun, it's tongue in cheek. They are absolutely riffing on old slasher films like Sleepaway Camp, like some of these other things where the acting is maybe not wonderful. And they absolutely talk about how some of the acting's poor and things like that. Like it's really tongue in cheek. And I feel like the end is like really heartfelt and kind of adorable. And like, it's one of those films where I laughed and when I was watching the end, I was sobbing because it was just so well done and so put together and just so subversive and understood where it was coming from. I would argue that it's kind of like the Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You. It's kind of got a similar sort of style and I think sort of humor. So if you've seen those, you would probably like Final Girl for sure.
I think they're producing a 5th entry in the Scream saga, right?
Yep, I think so.
Because I know there was a TV show for a while. I think I watched a couple episodes of it before I jumped off. But
3 seasons.
Did anybody watch that?
I did.
What did you think?
I liked the first season and maybe 2 episodes of the second, and then I watched it to keep going because the drama was fun, and I was already 14 episodes in. Didn't want to stop that now, but you could watch the first season and have a good time.
Yeah, really good first season.
Okay, good first season. Good to know. Did any of you guys watch the Heathers reboot?
No.
Did y'all know that was a thing? So they turned Heathers into a TV series.
Why?
Oh, it was not good. It was not good. They modernized it, and it was a cool take where the Heathers, instead of being, back in the day, they were the pretty popular girls, and the take on this series was that nowadays your Heathers would be, one of them was a gay man or a gay kid in high school. Another one was someone who was typically more overweight than what we would think of as someone who would be a Heather. And so they kind of took that approach to it, and it could have been cool. Oh man, but it fell flat in the execution. It was very, very disappointing. Sydney, I know that you have played The Last of Us lately.
Yes.
Okay, because that's one where, again, it's taking all of those zombie tropes that have kind of built up and follows some of them, but then in the first game and then especially in the second game goes away from those. What do you think about it?
Well, I love those games. First of all, I love both of them, even though there's a lot of contention over the second one.
They're wrong. They're absolutely wrong.
I loved it because, in my opinion, the characters are what make those games. Like, it's, okay, you get to shoot some infected, some zombies, it's great.
Mushroom zombies.
yeah, but it's the characters that really make those. And so just the way that they speaking of subverting things, they really subvert your expectations for what's going to happen with the characters. You have these 2 characters that you get really, really familiar with because you're, intimately following them through the first game. And then in the second game, it's 5-6 years later, and it's continuing on their path, and their path just goes in this way that you don't really expect it to, and you kind of get dragged along for the ride.
Yeah.
With it, and there was times during the game where I was like, I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do this. This is terrible. I don't want to do this, but you have to if you want to finish the game, So it's like, oh my gosh. And the fact that it can I say something that's kind of a spoiler? I don't know about.
I will let you use your best judgment on how spoilery it is.
The fact that you split your time between characters really, really affects that, your opinions of them. I think, because you spend the whole first half of the game thinking one thing, and then the whole second half of the game, you're like, I don't even know what to think anymore. I don't know what to do. You know, it's like the whole concept of heroes and villains is just non-existent because they're just people in a really crappy situation, making really crappy decisions constantly.
Now, those of you with...
So I think it's great. And it just happens to be set, you know, during like a zombie apocalypse kind of world.
Those of you with a little bit more of a horror history than I have, I feel like the first Last of Us, which came out around 2013, I believe, along with The Walking Dead, were a couple of the first properties that I remember, at least, that really dealt with, are the zombies the monsters, or are the other humans the monsters? And for me, that was a really cool direction that the zombies genre started going around that time. Was there something before that that I'm kind of not thinking of, or was that really where that kind of started?
I think zombies have always been that for us, of a discussion of who we are as people and the choices and things we're making now versus when the apocalypse happened, and all of those things, like with discussions of like consumerism, or Night of the Living Dead, which we kind of talked about a little bit, but like the original one, you know, I almost don't want to spoil it because I think it's like the end is so visceral and also so important for what we're dealing with right now in the world, that like that's one of the ones that I watched as well for my 31 Days of Halloween. And I almost like slammed my computer and like walked out because I was so angry about how it ended. And I think that's kind of been a thing with zombies, is like, who are the real monsters? And who do we become when we deal with people who are not really people, or are people that we don't really think are people? And what does that mean? And that's, I think, what the zombie property shows is who are we as people when we deal with things that we don't see as people?
This is all right. I'm going to spring this on you because I thought it was fun. So in The Last of Us and in other games like, it was another co-op zombie, Left 4 Dead. They have different iterations of zombies, because for a long time you had the zombie, right? And then in those you get like the fast zombie, you get the screaming banshee zombie, and then in The Last of Us you start to get, you know, the longer that the infection has been taking over them, the bigger and badder they get, and they become bloaters. Right, exactly. If you were to become a zombie, what kind of zombie do you think you might be? Like, how would you trap people? How would you get people?
I think if we're going with The Last of Us, because that's like the one that I'm familiar with, there's a new zombie in the new one, in the second one, that like is a sneaky zombie, and it like looks like a dead body, you know, because you find corpses all around as you're playing, and it looks like a corpse, and you walk past it and it like comes out of the wall.
That
and
got me the first time. You'd just be like sitting like a spider. You'd be sitting in your little fungus web, and then you just pop out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then they just get you, and you're like, nope.
That's a good answer. What unique take on a zombie what do you think you guys would be?
I'm not very fast. I have a feeling I would absolutely be like the Romero style zombie. I feel like I'd just be like, I feel like I'd just be slow. Or if you've done any zombie podcasts, We're Alive has some really interesting zombies. And so they have zombies who hold some of their intelligence. And so they make traps, and they set up different things, and they do different things to essentially catch as many humans so that they can take your tasty brains. So that might be what I would do as well. I like just find and trap and cause a lot of chaos. So
I'm not a very subtle person, and so I feel like I would be the 28 Days Later zombie, just like fast and like, I'm here to rip your face off. Let's go. So one-on-one, I might not be a very effective zombie, but I think in a group, I could join with a bunch of others and be really effective. Mikayla?
I plan not to become a zombie because I have my plan to get away from the zombies. I just want to point out, why have people not gone up in trees in the apocalypse? Like, why are we not doing like a tree house, right? Like, that came to me the other day. I was like, most of these zombies, at least that we've seen, like, they can't climb trees. You know, you saw in World War Z, like they climbed over bodies.
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not climbing trees. So like, why has nobody just built an entire Robinson Crusoe thing in the trees? So that's my plan. And I'm going to have to unfortunately kill all of you guys when you're zombies. So sorry.
Fair.
Hey, that's a good answer. I like that.
Hey, if you got to do what you got to do. So, no bad things taken. I don't feel bad about it.
My plan has always been Walmart first. Go to Walmart, get every supply you could possibly need. And then from there, we'll build the tree houses. And we'll get some good paint while we're at it. We'll make it real cute.
I always thought IKEA would be good too, because you get lost in IKEA.
Definitely.
And they've got food and stuff.
Home
so
Depot
just
for
hide in
sure.
IKEA for a while.
Home Depot for sure, because you get all the supplies, and then you can build your way across to a Walmart if you're.
Oh, there you go.
Close enough. Now you got 2 buildings.
Well, friends, this was a lot of fun. We got to talk about all different types of adaptations, from your one-to-ones to your just kind of like taking the genre and adapting to it. So thank you guys for this. Mikayla, a very special thank you to you for joining us on the show today.
Yes, thank you. It was awesome. It was so great.
So where can people find you?
On social media, you can find me at Pale Alaskan, PALEALASKAN. And then, of course, my podcast again is Death in Alaska. Find it everywhere.
Go give it the likes and subscribes. I'll definitely have to check that out. So next week on PopStream, we have episode 2 of the Denver Pop Culture Con flashback, which is going to be Nintendo trivia. So we're going to be highlighting a panel from 2019's Denver Pop Culture Con, in which we talked a lot of Nintendo trivia. We've got some really cool pictures to show, and we're going to be highlighting John Young of Denver's very own Level 7 Games as our guest next week for that one. So make sure you tune in for that. On our next AV Club next month, we will be doing 2020 in review. So all of our favorite films, TV, and video games that actually got released in 2020 and did not get delayed. Small list, but we got a few things to talk about. And in the meantime, don't forget that you can email us at popstream@popcultureclassroom.org with all of your questions, recommendations, and comments on the show. In the meantime, don't forget to catch us on Pop Scream tomorrow. Faith, Sydney, and I will be extremely scared playing Phasmophobia. That'll be real fun for you guys, I bet. Not so much for me. And then if you enjoyed this content and you like what Pop Culture Classroom does, give us a like, give us a subscribe on the PopStream YouTube and podcast channels, and make sure to ring the bell so that you know whenever a new stream goes live and is available on demand. And of course, share with your friends so that we can help build the best pop culture fan community on the internet. And for all the latest educational pop culture goodness, subscribe to the Pop Culture Classroom email newsletter. Once again, thank you all guys for joining me. Faith and Sydney, I will see you guys tomorrow. Mikayla, thank you again. And to all of you watching and listening out there, stay safe, stay healthy, go vote. And until next time, this has been your Pop Stream. Now go love each other.